Hi everybody, welcome back. Glad you could tune in again. Many years ago I heard an elderly pastor say something which has always stuck with me, and it may, I think, help us as we're addressing this question how we should deal with disagreements. And in particular, I think it might help us as we're thinking about the question I want to talk about today, which is what do we do to repair the damage when things have gone wrong? What do we do when we actually have had a disagreement with somebody else and it's got out of hand? We've failed to talk to the person we should have spoken to, for example. We've gone off and talked to everybody else, and we've created all kinds of bitterness and resentment, not just with us and this person, but with a whole bunch of other people. Something has happened that means we've not handled this appropriately. What do we do then? How do we fix things? Let me tell you what this pastor said to me, then I'll tell you why I think it's significant. He observed that over many years of his ministry, he had noticed that as people grow older, they grow in one of two directions. They either grow more Christ-like, more sweet-tempered, more peaceable and gracious, more easy to get on with, more loved and more loving other people, more the kind of elderly gentleman or elderly lady who is at the back of every congregation that's fortunate enough to have such an elderly lady or elderly gentleman, that everyone just dotes on and everyone is delighted to see. That's the one direction that they can head. The alternative is that as they get older, they become more bitter, more cantankerous, more disagreeable, quicker to start arguments and much slower to resolve them. In other words, everything that the elderly saint in, which is the first path that people tend to take, isn't. And this experienced pastor observed that as the years go by, what tends to happen is that the extremes become more pronounced and more extreme, that people go further in one direction or another. And the question that I want to address to you this morning is, which direction are you heading? As the years go past, you won't be able to perceive what's happening to you very easily. You'll have to think very carefully and, so to speak, step outside yourself and look at yourself and try and work out, are you becoming more bitter and disagreeable, or are you actually becoming more gracious, more kind, more loved, and more ready to love others? It's quite a challenge to do that, and to help us to do it, it's worth trying to work out why it is that people go off in one of those two directions. And the answer, of course, is fairly straightforward. It's all about our relationships. And over time, we accumulate one of two things in our relationships. We either accumulate brokenness that we haven't fixed, or we accumulate brokenness that we have. It's inevitable that we will have disagreements with one another. Of course it's inevitable, and it's actually inevitable that from time to time we will fail in our duty to resolve those disagreements amicably, and we'll end up with some kind of discord, bitterness, some relational breach between us and somebody else. And the critical question, which will determine which of those two paths we take into our future, is what do we do then? At that point, do we refuse to be reconciled with that person? Or do we swallow our pride and go and apologise? Because if you've ever done that latter thing, if you've ever gone and apologised, you'll know how much of a heart-in-mouth moment it is, really, and how painful and how much of a barrier it is and how much courage it takes to actually go and apologise to somebody. It's quite a the bigger the deal is, the more it actually takes out of us, and the more courage it takes to actually address that confrontation and actually say, look, I'm just really sorry. But you will also know the tremendous, tremendous relief that it is. Almost instantly, the moment you've done it. It's remarkable that we don't do it more, because to have the experience of a Christian brother or sister just forgiving you right there and then, is so tremendously liberating. And it is that which leads us, by God's grace, gradually, as the decades roll past, to becoming the gracious, sweet-hearted, loving, patient, kind, elderly man or woman sitting at the back of church that everybody is just delighted is there. That is the choice that is before us. We can head in either one of those two directions, and which direction we take will depend on how we respond when disagreements arise. We conclude with Paul the Apostle's way of saying all the things I've just said, from Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving one another. As the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. The Lord bless you, and I look forward, God willing, to seeing you very soon. Bye for now.